Hello to the chicos and the chicas, welcome back. Today on the menu is going to be a dreaded topic. Some love it, more hate it, or rather feel uncomfortable about it, and that topic is going to be none other than endgame technique. It is definitely, I think, a topic that you don't really see a lot of material about on YouTube, I believe, so I hope that this is going to be covering some basis for you that is going to help you, A, to be better informed, and 2, to actually get excited about endgames. It is an old hobby horse of mine that you can't get good about endgames, and you can't really improve your endgames unless you like them. It's possible, but I think that it's a lot easier to develop an affinity for it through going through some remarkably cool examples and then go from there rather than forcing yourself into it and always feel like, oh, I don't want this. Anyway, long story short, I'm going to throw you in the deep end right off the bat because I'm going to start with a question just to put no pressure on whatsoever. You are white in this position. As you can see, we are following a game of mine. And the big question is that are we going to opt in this position for queen d3? Which creates a back rank checkmate threat in case black takes the pawn, as well as a penetration idea on d7, or perhaps we opt for queen g4, which allows black a trade, but then we obtain the d file. So the choice is yours. The answer is mine. I'm going to reveal it right now, so if you don't want to hear it, pause the video. The correct move in this position is queen g4, which is going to take us to an advantageous rook ending. Having said that, how much of an advantage that is up for debate. Queen d3 is also playable, but not as good. What we need to find here, and this is a crucial difference between the two lines, is that after the clever queen e7, when white plays queen d7, then black has got king f8, and after the queen trade, black successfully denies the penetration of the white rook, and this position is really close to dead even now, although black is still fighting for that equality, but this seems to be now within reach. In contrast, after queen g4, we are still threatening with rook d7 because the queen covers it via the famous x3 motif, of which I also have a video, by the way, if you want to look that up. And after queen takes comes, of course, the controversial topic, which shouldn't be controversial at all, which is that, but we now have the double pawns. Exactly. We do have the double pawns, which is a great asset in this position, because this pawn on g4 is going to allow us to play g5 and create a very unpleasant bind on these three pawns. That being said, the main reason, of course, why this position is better for white is because our rook is extremely active and the 7th rank penetration cannot be stopped. Now, objectively speaking, this position is a draw, but it is an absolute red-hot nightmare to play this for black unless you really understand your rook endings well and you know what to play for. So let's see how the game went. Opponent played g6. Very strong disapproval on my end for this move. King f8 seemed more logical, or immediately launching a pawn forward idea with a5, a4 was necessary. What we need to very clearly understand here is that the material discrepancy is such that white has got 4 pawns on this side of the board versus 3. And black has got the 3 versus 2 here. However, because of the insane activity of the white rook, what's gonna happen here, if black defends this position correctly, is that black is going to choose to sacrifice one of these pawns, preferably one that doesn't necessarily lead to split pawns, but even that may be okay. But at the cost of the pawn, they are going to activate their rook, open up a file, and immediately penetrate along those files, well, or file, whichever opens up. So, for example, a5, rook d7, a4 is a very typical idea. Take, and now, before obviously we run in, we need to clear up the back rank. According to the engine, almost all pawn moves are fine. I quite like g5 because it creates a situation where I can't progress my pawns without trading some of them. And after rook b6 check and rook b1, we are going to come to a scenario quite close to the game. This looks decent. Maybe f6 or h6 is even better. My endgame understanding, and rather the time that now I can spend on the position to even look much deeper than I would normally do, is not allowing me to necessarily distinguish between h6 or g5 or even f6. But any of these would have sufficed. And this, in rough outline, the only strategy that works for black. So if you want to hold a position like this, and in general in rook ending, the concept is piece activity is far more important than material. And it's completely delusional that black is going to get a pass pawn because we have got 3 versus 2. No, you are happy to actually not lose more than 1. That's how it is going to transpire. Now, in the game, my opponent played g5. And somewhat erroneously, I thought that it was immediately good for me to lock that pawn in with g5. The machine doesn't quite like it, because here I had an opportunity to immediately force pawn moves out of black that would make the structure quite rigid. So after king g2, a5, for example, many a player, he would play rook b7. Bad move. Because now after a4 takes, check, once again, we are going to reach with rook b2 or king up or h6, a position very much akin to the game, except it's a far superior version for black, because the kingside pawns are not necessarily blockaded or stopped, and the white king finds it very difficult to approach the c5 pawn because b2 is constantly hanging. The rook can attack c5, but I can also attack b2, and of course, this is what black wants. I should have said that earlier, so let's go back to the very beginning. The ultimate way for black to score a draw from this position is to somehow engineer the disappearance of all the highlighted pawns, meaning the entirety of the queen side, which would lead us to a 4 versus 3, which is a theoretical draw. Not an easy one to hold, but it's a theoretical draw, and black should succeed in accomplishing that. Now, why did I say that here after rook c7, c5, rook b7, a5, rook b6 is a mistake? The reason for that, that's not how my line went though, was it? It was here. Rook c7, yeah, king g2, and if a5, rook here, then, or rather a4 actually, that's what we are talking about. That's why rook b7 is a mistake. Because a4 ensures that black does not get to trade the pieces, rather the pawns, excuse me. And now the rook remains incredibly passive, which represents a far greater value from white's point of view than mowing down one of those pawns. In fact, I was aiming for a very similar position in the game with a black rook on a6, which would have been my absolute dream. So let's see how the game went. I went in b6, g5. I wanted to shut down these pawns for good. a5, and I played rook c7. And here, after c5, I went rook b7, which was probably a sizable mistake. Although the machine doesn't say a4 here, I suspect that, again, the theme is that the rook immediately abandons the back rank and goes to find counter targets, counter attacks. So, for example, rook c6, rook check, rook king g2, rook here, and now if I take c4. That is, again, textbook defense by black. Just going like, nah, can't care less about the pawns, my rook needs to come out. And the sooner you do it, the better. So in the game, I went rook c7, rook b6. And yeah, this is where I was hoping that they would defend the pawn. That was my dream. And then after a4, this is just completely hopelessly dead lost. Because now the black rook is stuck, the black king is stuck. Like they can't come over here because f7 is hanging. King g7, h6 loses to takes, rook f7. And so all I need to do is to casually waltz my king in here, king b5, and eat all the pawns and walk away with the sweetest endgame victory ever. Now my opponent, of course, was a far better player than allowing nonsense like that and played a4, thus sacking the pawn for the activity. And to be fair, I do believe, in fact I do know, that this should be a holdable endgame. In fact, here, yeah, this is very interesting because this looks like the logical way to play, but in fact rook c8 is cleanest here, which is the slightly unusual method because all what black wants is the trade of the pawns, right? And actually he failed to accomplish that in the game, and that's exactly why he lost. And rook c8 beautifully ensures that the pawns are coming off, because no matter what white plays, c4 is coming next, and I can't afford not to take it, because if I push past, then the c pawn might even be decisive. So yeah, this would have been the cleanest draw. A beautiful demonstration of delivering an idea whilst caring zilch about material. Idea being trade all pawns, and so bang, 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 and all pawns are coming off on the queen side, thus securing a draw. Yeah, so what happened here was that he came in from behind, which is typically what you want to recommend. Rooks belong behind pawns. Now, c4 is a very annoying threat. However, here, contrary to if you go behind and then push c4, if I go here, I cut out c4 as a threat, because I can take and defend the rook. So rook b5 here is not played with the intention of taking c5, not at all. All I am doing is that I'm preempting the c4 threat. And what really made me stop for a second now is the wondering that, why is this not good now? King f3 c4, and I reckon I might be... Oh, no, I can pin it now. That's right. Okay. So in this position, if I want to use c4 trick, I need to play king here, rook here, excuse me, and now the white king can actually sail across. This is something I did not notice when I prepared this video for YouTube. So even now as I'm recording, I'm discovering new ideas and new things. Take is extremely risky, because then the king is going to penetrate to the queen side, and then the pawn becomes a winning asset. And c4 is simply no bueno, because now b4 gets played, and my king is in time to help against the c4 pawn, and again, this guy is now becoming the winning tool, so to speak, for black. So now it is already getting a little bit iffy. Now let's go back to the pawn structure on the king side, because I wanted to show you something about these bad boys. Wait, yeah. So the reason why g5 is so annoying here, and the reason why it's great to have the g double pawns, is because if the king starts walking this way, or God forbid all the way here, I can just go after the f pawn, abandon the b1, take the f7 one and the h7 one unstoppably so, and then I will have a 4 versus 1 on the king side. And very often what you find there is that later on I sack the rook for the pawn, and the 4 pawns are rolling in like champions. So black's interest again is to trade pawns, but it's incredibly difficult to pull off, because if you play in this position, let's say king g7, I play pass, and you play f6, then I have rook check, and I'm winning the pawn. Now, what I was worried about during the game was h6, which actually did get played. But then I realized that once h6 gets played, even then after take, if I lure the king back to g7, I can then block it again with g4, g5, recreating the same setup and exactly benefiting again from the double pawns. So let's see what happened. I went g4, preparing for exactly that scenario that I just described. King g7, king up, h6, move by move as per predicted. Take, rook b... Oh no, I didn't play rook b7 here because of c4, that's right. So, although... No, that's nonsense talk, because I think this is winning for white. Yeah, rook f7 does win. So I could have played... The, oh yeah, but now king g7, and I don't have time for g5 because of c4. That's right. So that's why I went f4 here to support g5. And this is where things derailed very badly for my opponent, who now needed to relocate the rook here to attack these 2 pawns at the same time. But he didn't sense the momentum here, and he simply put the king back, kind of prophylactically preempting g5. But now the trouble is very, very serious, and now white is just winning, because I've got a plan of walking across here and mowing this pawn down, and there is not a lot that black can do. They played king e7, king e4, king d6, and I went in with the check, which was the plan all the way, because now black does not have an adequate square for the king. If they go c7, I'm going to eat the f-pawn. If they go back to e7, then the problem is that now I can approach the c-pawn, and I can even keep an eye with the e1 should they go behind. It's very similar to the game. And now, yeah, I'm going to cause major trouble. Not to mention that I have an additional check to force the king all the way to the back rank when I can even create checkmate threats. So this is now looking really, really, really dire for black. In fact, we can call that dead lost. And of course, if after the check the king goes back to e7, again, I can just approach and essentially get a similar position to what we looked at. Opponent played king d7, I went king d5. Again, multiple threats are on the board. Rook e2 was played and I just played e4. Now the check is my main threat. Now it's already +6, by the way, according to the engine's measure. And after rook f2, rook f6, that was the point when I knew that I was gonna win the game. Because, well, I already knew it earlier, but this is definitely the definitive moment, the defining moment, because f7 hangs, c5 hangs, and since f7 hangs with check, I'm going to win c5 without losing any pawns. Now, unfortunately, here my technique started to falter, partly because I was playing this game on stream, and I actually recorded this segment, and I wanted to upload the live recording, but I figured out that the recording wasn't educational enough despite my best efforts, so I decided to re-record. And but yeah, by now I had only 1 minute on the clock, and I really wanted to turn it into an endgame masterpiece, so I went into a bit of a try-hard mode. And very foolishly here, I made a huge mistake in a very, very simple endgame. And that mistake was that in that position I forgot to give... Oh no, I did... well, I didn't forget the check. Rook f7, king g6 was the cleanest win. And I didn't go for it. Which is very embarrassing because one of the most commonly heard mantra that ever left this mouth about chess is that 2 connected passes in a rook ending is your ultimate brain-dead victory, where you need hands, no skills. Just push them and they promote. But somehow I got flustered by something here and I didn't take and take, which is what I should have done. And I took with the king, allowing rook f2. And now the pawns are going to be split, which is awkward. Now here I thought that I completely botched it with rook f5. f8 rather, excuse me. Turns out this was the cleanest way to win. And this is another very big lesson that I really want you to learn about rook endings in general. That a lot of people would try to cling onto these pawns, all 3 of them, as if their life depended on it. Like, your win condition now is to promote the g pawn, right? Do we need these 2 pawns for the g pawn to promote? No. So don't be worried about giving it up. It's totally okay. Because, and this is actually another big teaching or big takeaway from this video, hopefully it will be for you. We just entered a rook ending here that belongs to an endgame category. I was thinking about it actually before I recorded the video, that I think for adult improvers, it's a common thing to have so-called flashcards where, whether it's puzzles or certain middle game themes, whatever, you have a look at a card, there's a question, there's a diagram, and bang, you give the answer. I think it would be a very good idea for many improvers to have flashcards which have nothing but endgame positions that you identify as you look at as winning or drawing. And not only do you identify, but you can do it, right? So Philidor position pops up, draw, and you know the drawing technique, right? So it only counts if you understand how to draw it. And this is a textbook case of, you look at it and you go, yeah, it's a white win classic textbook case of the Lucena rook ending bridge building. And until you don't have that confidence, your endgame play is going to be always faulty, because although I did hate myself for losing or allowing my opponent to split my pawns, I knew that I could afford losing both because of the Lucena win. And that's exactly what happened here. And one very interesting thing was that I didn't realize that this is actually an even better position than the Lucena from white's perspective, because in the Lucena the black rook is all the way down here, or at least here. And so I don't even need to build a bridge, which I attempted to do here with rook e5, which is the classic winning method. I simply could have just walked, because after a check if they go back here, then after king g5 there is no more checks to be had. And if rook g2, rook f2, excuse me, last trick to sell with promote and then win the queen, I just play rook g1. And after all, we did build the bridge. That's the all pieces piled up or on the same file is what we call the bridge building, and now the rook can't interfere here or here, and thus the pawn promotes. Now I didn't notice that in the time trouble, so I went for the bridge building method, and that's exactly how the rook ending finished. So yeah, that was it, ladies and gents. I found this rook ending very instructive. When I played it on stream, the chat was very excited about it and engaging, and they found it fascinating that how many facets and how many different plans and strategies can be found in a seemingly simple looking rook ending where there is not much else on the board other than just a pair of rooks and pawns, and it looks so dull, and yet it's so incredibly deep. So that's gonna be it for now. If you would like to improve your rook ending skills, a position like this is a really good practice tool to play it out against Stockfish or a training partner if you have one. Just ensure that if you're playing it against Stockfish, that perhaps not in the highest level, but take it down a notch or two, just to even the field out a little bit, and you are going to learn a lot about the various techniques that come to play in an endgame like this. I hope you guys liked it. That's gonna be it for now. Please don't forget to sub, to like, to comment, and to super thank me if you can. Thank you very much for tuning in. I will be back soon.